Well, we made it. We're in. Happy Monday morning. It is great to be here with you after a crazy Winter Storm Blair on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. We are streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app, and it was a historic weekend across Kansas City. We now know that when you look back on these numbers, it will be a weekend that we always remember. Kansas City International Airport recording 11 inches of snow, marking this as the fourth largest single-day snowfall in the city's history, and it is only the eighth time since 1888 that Kansas City has received at least 10 inches of snow in a single day. So we are here for you this morning on KCMO, and we are happy to hear from you all morning as you're traveling. Hopefully not, but if you have to travel the roads, if you've got to get out there, and once you can safely call and check in with us, we are here for you at 913-408-7957. If you are dealing with power outages, things that are not being reported by your local news, we will have you covered all morning long on KCMO Talk Radio. Mark is here. I made it in. I had to get chauffeured here by the engineer, the great Dennis Eversole, who had four-wheel drive. I do not, and I could not get out of my neighborhood. I wasn't worried. Once I got to the main roads, I thought I could nurse it along at 30, 35 miles an hour. I just knew I was going to have a tough time getting out of the neighborhood. Mark, the great producer, Mark Van Sickle, got himself out the door, and he's here rocking and rolling. Good morning.
I'd like to give a shout-out to Sled Zeppelin over there in Olathe for getting us out of our neighborhood.
Now, who is Sled Zeppelin?
Sled Zeppelin. So they name their sleds in Olathe, and you can, or snowplows. And so you can go see which snowplows are out and around and about the city. And I just looked this morning, and Sled Zeppelin was right in my neighborhood.
Well, I wish Sled Zeppelin got to my neighborhood because he didn't get to me yet. Now, I'll say this. Yesterday, I reached out to some folks in first responder land, and I said, hey, I've got to get to work in the morning. I don't want priority, but, I would say that we've got to get on the air tomorrow morning to update the folks in Kansas City as to what's going on. So I gave them my street, and I gave them Mark Street. And they got to Mark Street, but never got to my street. I don't know what that's all about. I guess, I understand the pecking order around here. And, on certain days, Mark's high up on the pecking order. But for whatever reason, they got to Mark and never got to me. So Mark texts me this morning. He's like, yeah, I think I'm going to get out of here okay. I'm like, all right, great. I'm not. I got to the end of my road, and I couldn't get up the damn hill. I had to turn around, back up, and call our engineer, and he was able to get me in here on the four-wheel drive.
Yeah, if they would not have got my neighborhood, I would not have gotten out.
No, you would have had to get the chauffeur service as well.
As well, yes.
But you were able to get out of there in one piece, so nice job by you. But listen, if you do not have to be on the roads this morning, please avoid it at all costs. A lot of the major interstates are still closed this morning. You are going to hear from Kansas City City Manager Brian Platt. He's going to be on the show coming up in about 20 minutes, right at 6:30 or so. He is going to be here. So we'll be talking to people all morning long, meteorologists. We've got folks who are going to be on the roads. So we will have reporters and people who need to get you all the information that you need in the wake of this historic weekend. What you need to know is going to be right here on 95.7 FM. So, and if you've got information that, once again, is not being reported, you can call us. We'll get you on the air at 913-408-7957 or text us as well. So it's going to be that kind of morning, wall-to-wall on, of course, what is happening in this town with the weather. And now we enter this bitter, bitter cold. And it's not going anywhere for a couple of days. I mean, we're sitting right here down in Corporate Woods, and it is a balmy, as we start the morning, 9 degrees. And the feel-like temperature is -3. The winds are 10 miles an hour right now this morning. So if you can avoid going out, please do not go out. If you can work from home, work from home. If you can call in, please call in. Nothing is going to be happening today here in Kansas City, I promise you. No business is getting done. No commerce is getting done. It is a lost day. Let these plows out there do their jobs and The big thing, too, is to make sure we don't have to waste first responder time and service on people who do not need to be out on the roads. That's a big part of this as well, making sure that we are allowing first responders to have all hands on deck for what they need to be doing and the people they need to be helping. Not you running out for a cup of coffee. Make it at home this morning. It's better that way anyway. You'll save yourself some time and money in the process. So do not go out. Let the crews do what they got to do and just tune in. We'll be here for you. Stream us on Alexa. Stream us on your Google Home. We've got you all morning long on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio. Most of your major interstates are going to be closed this morning. Some of your major thoroughfares on the back roads will be open, but you're seeing, as we know, state of Kansas, if you live in Kansas, you got the big emergency alert last night at about 6 p.m. or so, where they announced that they do not want anybody on the roads in the state of Kansas so they can get this thing cleared out. They can put people to work that need to be put to work. There were pileups on Saturday all over the metro. I mean, it was bad. You had 100-car pileups on 69 Highway. I know you had one out on K10 as well on Saturday night into Sunday morning. So it has been an absolute mess. And the state of Kansas put out that alert asking basically everybody in the entire state to stay home. So these are dangerous times. You do not want to be out unless you absolutely have to, like you're a first responder, or you've got an essential job. You're an essential worker. Got to get in. You're a doctor. You're a nurse, things like that. I understand there are people who need to be doing that right now and need to be out and about. But if you can avoid it at all costs, please do avoid it. Not just for your own sake, but, of course, for the people who are out there trying to clear the streets and need to help those who are in need, right? I mean, if you've got emergency medical calls, that's one thing. If you're stuck in a ditch because you wanted to run out for a donut, you're not essential and you did not need to be out. So just be safe this morning. We've got you at 913-408-7957 is how you join us on KCMO Talk Radio. We'll be covering this all morning long. I don't know what some of the other folks in town are going to be covering today. Maybe you can tell me. I don't know if NPR is going to be covering the weather in Kansas City when it's, the 4th anniversary of January 6th, right? I mean, this is like a freaking federal holiday to these people over at National Panhandler Radio. So you might even not know there's a snowstorm today if you tune in to NPR. I mean, they've been prepping for January 6th since January 7th of last year. They're not going to let some historic snowstorm get in the way of covering January 6th anniversary. They can't help themselves. They got Liz Cheney coming on today. Come on now. But we're going to talk about the things that you are talking about in this town, and that is the historic weather weekend that we just had. 913-408-7957. Brian Platt is the Kansas City City Manager. He is going to be here in 15 minutes as we get it rolling on 95.7 FM KCMO. I couldn't believe the blowback I was getting on social media over the weekend for the Chiefs doing something that I thought was incredibly stupid. And it had nothing to do with the awful play on the field yesterday. So the Chiefs, of course, were traveling to Denver to take on the Broncos. We know all the backups were going to play. The game was meaningless. But reports started surfacing on Saturday afternoon that the Chiefs were stuck on the tarmac at KCI. And they apparently got stuck there for 3+ hours. Because the defroster for the tarmac at KCI wasn't working. Oh, you mean something operational in Kansas City was having issues?
Talk about a bombshell.
Wow, I can't believe that. So the de-icer wasn't working for the runway, and they were stuck. The freezing rain was falling, the sleet, the ice, everything else, and it resulted in them getting stuck on the tarmac for a while. Now, as this is going on, I'm seeing all this play out on social media, and I'm like, what are you doing? The reports first came down at about 4 o'clock that they were waiting for a window. 4 o'clock, they were waiting for a window to take off. And I put up on X, I shared one of the reports, and I said a multi-billion-dollar operation in the Chiefs. And nobody watched a local Kansas City weather forecast all week? How does this happen? And then I linked back to the podcast. They could hear our hits with Luke Doris, the KCTV5 chief meteorologist, and they could have heard those. We knew since Monday that we were looking at a major snowstorm this past weekend. This was not a surprise to anybody who's like not living under a rock in this town. And the Chiefs were trying to get out of Kansas City early afternoon on Saturday. That is just horrible planning. Now, they eventually, of course, got out of Denver. They found a window. They figured out how to get the de-icer working for the runway, and they were well on their way after a 3 to 4 hour delay on the tarmac. But I couldn't believe how many Chiefs fans were in my mentions being like, well, you know what really happened is the charter plane they were using left LAX in Los Angeles late and landed in Kansas City an hour and a half past its scheduled time, so that's why they were late getting out of town. Okay. That is an awful excuse. Planning to leave any time after early to mid-morning on Saturday was a poor plan. Relying on airlines to be on time in 2025 is an even dumber plan. So, yes, if everything had gone according to plan, the Chiefs probably would have been fine. If they were supposed to leave, maybe noon, 1 o'clock, they probably would have been okay. But you are playing with fire. And in this case, they played with fire and they got burnt. Now, you might say, who cares? The game got played. They got there, and they got there safely, thank goodness. Yes, that's true. But this was all very avoidable. And I'm sorry, but this is where my mind goes. In a worst-case scenario, I'm flying on these airplanes with players who have contracts, when you stack them all up, worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and I'm putting them in a very risky situation. For what? Let's not forget that. The players were put in a fairly risky and potentially dangerous situation, and there was no need to do that. You could have left on Friday. You've been off for a week and a half. You haven't played a football game since Christmas Day. It's not like you had a short week. It was completely inexcusable planning. And that's the part of it, too. I know everything went fine, but there are just people who are looking at this on social media like the Chiefs can never do anything wrong. And they screwed this up. And I know that, it's not going to be a story after today, but I did feel the need to address it because it could have been a lot worse. Now, maybe after the way they played yesterday, staying home in a forfeit would have been a better scenario for them rather than getting on the field even with the backups and looking like they did yesterday. But, man, it's an unnecessarily dangerous situation to put your team in on Saturday. And the excuse-making from the Chiefs fanboys just shocked me, Mark.
And they did stay the night in Denver last night. Usually they come back right after the game. They stayed in Denver so they wouldn't have to try to get home from the airport or even land in the airport. I don't think KCI was really bringing any flights in at that point.
That is good. I didn't realize that. So they stayed and they're coming back today.
Yeah.
Well, good. They got a week off. That's smart, right? You got a week off. It's not like you got to get home to sleep in your bed and start prepping for a wild card game. Just take the day. Same thing we're telling everybody else today. We had to come in because, listen, I'm not saying we're essential like EMS and law enforcement, but we are here to provide a service to the public, especially during times like this when you've got extreme weather and, you've got a lot of uncertainty out there. But if you don't have to, if you can sit home today, work from home, please go ahead and do that. There was no need for the Chiefs to come back last night because that also not only would have put the players in danger, you're putting people who are working at the airport in danger. For what?
My wife's biggest concern was, has Brittany had the baby yet? And we don't know. They aren't going to post it, but I'm sure they have a doctor at their house so they don't have to go out to the hospital if something were to happen.
Well, I did think about that. I wondered how the weekend was going to go for them since the baby is due any day, right? We're on full-blown baby watch for Mahomes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Kate and I were talking about it last night, and she goes, gosh, they really know how to time these babies around the off season. And I said, well, if the kid's coming soon, Patrick, he's not going to know that kid till that kid's about a month old. I mean, if they get to the Super Bowl, with all due respect to his third child, that kid's, I mean, you don't remember anything from this age anyway, obviously, but Patrick's barely going to know the kid for about a month. Let's just be clear about that. He is not going to be Mr. Dad waking up 2-3 times a night. I know they can pay for that. They should pay for that. You've got a $500 million contract, but he's not going to be very involved in that kid's life for the next month. And he shouldn't be. I'm not knocking him at all. He shouldn't be. He's got a very important job to do here.
Yeah, they'll have the photo shoot at home, where he's holding the baby and everything.
Yeah, it'll be cute.
That'll be all right.
And then he'll say,
that'll come out in a couple months.
Exactly. He'll say, hey, kid, I'll see you on Monday, February 10th. I think that's the day after the Super Bowl this year.
That's the good thing for the Chiefs. Now they don't have to try to fly anywhere till the Super Bowl.
They don't have to go anywhere. But still, even when he's home, he's not going to be super dad, okay? And he should not be super dad. He can pay somebody for a month. I would totally respect him doing that. And he says, I'll see you on Monday, February 10th, hopefully with a 4th Super Bowl ring. And I'll tell you about it when you're, 10 years old. All right? We'll make up for it then, big guy or gal. I guess we don't know.
It's a girl.
Oh, you're right. It is a girl.
They did the Instagram reveal thing.
That's right. It is a girl.
I think her name is going to be Goldie, by the way.
Is that your prediction?
Yeah, you got bronze, you got sterling. They got to have some other medal, right?
There's got to be a medal because the dogs are named after medals, too.
Yeah.
See, we went for the C's with Claire, Chloe, and Charlotte. They went for the medals. Everyone's got their thing, I suppose. All right, we're getting an update from Brian Platt, Kansas City, Missouri city manager, coming up in 20 minutes, and we'll get you set on what's going on with the roads around Kansas City, Missouri proper. They've been busting their tails on that front over the last 36 hours or so. Also, we've got officially snow totals here. On the Kansas side, Atchison at 14 inches of snow. Olathe, number 2, at 12 inches. Lawrence got 11.5. Lansing, 11. Eudora, 10.5. Lenexa, 10.5. Overland Park, 10. Mission, 9. Wellsville, 7. On the Missouri side, Cameron got 13. St. Joe got 13 inches. Platte City got a foot. Savannah got a foot. Blue Springs got a foot. Smithville, 10.5. Trenton, 10 inches. Downtown KC, 10 inches. Chillicothe, 8.5. Raytown, 8 inches of snow. The official number at KCI is over 11, which makes it the 4th largest snowfall in Kansas City, Missouri history, dating back to 1888. I'm Pete Mundo. It's 8:15 on KCMO. We've got more from the morning. Reaction from you as well, 913-408-7957. If you do have to get out on the roads, we will gladly take an update from you on what exactly that is looking like depending on where you are on the metro. 913-408-7957. Pete Mundo on 95.7 FM. Still not many outages to report. Only 38 active outages around Kansas City. Looking at the map right now, about 200 customers. So that is one thing we have avoided in this historic winter storm thus far. Now, those numbers are up about double from where they were an hour ago. But still, I mean, these are minuscule numbers, especially based on what the predictions were coming in, that we got the ice, we got the heavy snowfall. We literally got everything that the meteorologists predicted, which in and of itself is kind of a rarity. Listen, I don't know who's wrong more often, talk show hosts or meteorologists. We both have our good days and bad days. The difference is when I have a bad day on a pick, I've got to run a naked lap around the parking lot. It's not a life or death situation. No one's planning and storing up on food because of my predictions. So a little bit different in terms of what's at stake. But either way, the meteorologist did nail this storm and literally almost perfectly how it played out. But the one big concern was going to be weather and how then the outages could impact that. And so far, so good. The snow and ice have not led to any kind of major power outages in the area. But we'll keep you posted if anything does change on that front. Looking at the map here, state of Kansas, much more banged up when it comes to the roads than the state of Missouri is right now. State of Kansas, it looks like I-70 remains closed. You got to basically go out to Manhattan now to get to where I-70 is technically shut down. About an hour ago, it was closed almost to Topeka, but now that's shifted to the west, and it's opened out to Manhattan. But then once you get to Manhattan on I-70, it's closed all the way out to basically Hayes, Kansas. Now, it's open from the standpoint of you can get on them. We talked to Trooper Ben with the Highway Patrol last hour, and as he shared here on KCMO, they can't block you from getting on I-70. They just don't have the manpower or capacity to do that right now. But technically, I-70 is shut down, and most of your roads in central Kansas, when you go from the state line, basically the northern state line, Nebraska state line, down to Wichita in central Kansas, basically all of those roads are closed. Meantime, in our area, it looks like things are starting to open back up. This morning when we started off the show at 6 o'clock, you had 435, K10, 35. Most of them were also shut down. But now what they're saying is the roads are open. They are completely snow-covered. The ramp conditions are very much hit or miss, depending on where you're at in the Kansas side of the state line. But we do not have any closures as I look at that map right now. Text line is 913-408-7957. That's also our studio line. If you are on the roads this morning, if you have to be on the roads, just make sure you let us know what you're seeing, where you're at. Mark and I got in this morning. I had to get an assist from the engineer who had four-wheel drive. I just couldn't get out of the neighborhood. That was my big problem. And I had a pretty slippery hill I couldn't get up, so he bailed me out. Mark's road was taken care of. So last night, I texted some emergency response folks in our city, and I gave them the address for Mark and myself. And I said, hey, I never like to call in favors, but this is somewhat essential, given what we do. Can you possibly put our streets at the front of the list to be plowed? I said, I understand if you can't, but, listen, can you help us out here? I wake up, Mark and I are talking, and he's like, yeah, they just came by and plowed my street. I think I'm going to make it. I'm like, great, nobody plowed mine. So I got Mark taken care of here. But, I'm sitting here like, no one plowed my street. So they took care of Mark. Once again, I'm the low man on the totem pole around here.
Thank you, Sled Zeppelin, for coming through my neighborhood.
Sled Zeppelin. That is the name of the Olathe snowplow that hooked up Mark's neighborhood this morning.
Yep. Yeah, they have some cool names.
That is pretty cool.
Go to the city website and find all their names.
They've got all the names on the city website. All right, good to know. Well, I don't know what my plow's name is because I haven't seen it yet. I don't know. I haven't gotten the update yet from the crew back at the house. I'm sure I'll hear about it. But here's... Oh, man. I'll tell you what, too. Poor Mark. The boss texted us last night, and she says, hey, guys, I've got a plow guy that's going to come take care of your driveway. Now, I had been shoveling all day, but with the blowing snow, and then we got that big band that came in early evening, I had a few inches on the driveway, and the big boss, I appreciate her, Donna Baker, calling in a favor for us and saying, hey, let this guy know that you're going to be, just give him your address. He'll come by. He'll plow your driveway and take care of you and hook you up. And she texted Mark and myself and I think a couple others. And I said, oh, that's great. That's very nice. So I texted the guy. He showed up at about 11 o'clock last night. Very loud, but he did a great job. And I'm texting Mark. I'm like, hey, did you see the boss's text? Make sure you take advantage of this. It's not going to cost you anything. Mark texted me like an hour later. I was getting nervous. I just figured he was putting the kids to bed. He's like, oh, I just been shoveling for 2 hours. I didn't realize.
Yeah, I had my phone on the charger inside, so I didn't even know I was getting texts.
So this guy's, he could have gotten a free plow in the driveway, and he was shoveling for 2 hours. I felt bad for you there, Mark. Jeez.
It's all right. Got a workout in.
Yeah, I was going to say, you got your exercise in for the day, so good job there. Kathy and Lee Summit. Kathy, you're on KCMO. What's going on out there?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, we're doing okay. What do you got?
Well, I am just finishing up about a 14-hour shift running dispatch for our landscape company that I work for. And going to yesterday was absolutely horrible. So many cars stuck in the road, on the roadsides. But coming back, it's pretty good. Lee Summit's done a really good job of getting these roads cleared.
That is outstanding. Now, Missouri took less of a hit than Kansas, but Missouri's always gotten a bad rap for not doing as good of a job. And I have been impressed from people we've heard from saying that Missouri's in pretty good shape right now. So that's great.
Yeah, usually Lee Summit's a little behind, but they're on it this time.
Love that. Love that. Well,
So,
Kathy,
yeah.
I hope that you as a first responder can go home and get some rest because you've earned it.
Yeah, I'm going to try.
Oh, gosh. Well, we appreciate you, Kathy. Thanks for all you do, and thanks for listening.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
There you go. Have a great day. Kathy and Lee Summit on KCMO. Coming up, Brian Platt is the Kansas City, Missouri city manager. He will join us, give you an update on the roads and conditions in Kansas City and what to expect in the days ahead next.